Check one. Welcome aboard everyone to a new session. Late one, the Asian session or overnight session here on Charting Across the Board. I apologize for the technical difficulties. We have been trying this since this morning. And now finally it does appear that my old device is finally working properly. I see no frames are being dropped for now. So therefore, let's try to convey the arguments that I'm trying to portray in the chart. Where are we currently in the price action for BTC, the S&P 500, as well as gold? Why these three instruments? Because they have been key within this downtrend on the S&P 500, as well as Bitcoin on the recent upward trajectory. And as we all know, of course, the metal on gold has been rising, parabolic rises. Where are we on gold? Let's dive in. And once again, welcome aboard. Apologize the absence. As many of you do not know, I've been working on a personal journey as a trader, taking a few exams, Series 3 and 65, as the upcoming challenge that I've been working on. Nevertheless, where are we in the price action for the S&P 500? Please keep in mind this stream is going to be very briefly as I'm running low on battery, unfortunately, but let's try to portray the arguments so we can all align with our views. So as you guys know, we were looking for this downward pressure that manifested at the 4,800 region. Now significant upward move to the 40 or 5,900 region, to where overhead resistance from previous structural resistance, also from even July 2024. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong contract here. This is the wrong contract. Apologize. This one is the current one. Okay. So where are we currently? Back testing previous structure resistance from October 2024. Resistance. So therefore, we're basically at the same levels we were trading prior to last year in October. Prior to the all-time high at 6,061 and 66 was high. Now currently back testing the deepest areas of retracement. Okay, the 0.786 and the 0.886, where we have a pending W formation. This is a key for those followers of the tenets of the Dow theory. Why? Because here comes into place the decisive penetration that Harold Garley talks in his book. Decisive penetration of either the highs or the previous lows, okay, as a false breakup or continuation of this upward trajectory that manifested at the 48 region. Can we make a new all-time high? This will be the big question, my friends, okay? We, as of now, have a pending W formation. As of now, we have reached the PRC in this segment of the move of the 0.786. You guys know that after breaching the key technical level at the 0.618, 56, where we have some windows in between, open windows for gaps in this case, we have a key technical level that has been recaptured as of now, until of course further evidence dictate otherwise. Okay, so therefore Larry Pesavento Garley, bearish Garley, has been printed as of now, okay? And Garley, in his book, mentioned that this is indeed the true test for those looking for a V-shaped recovery. Once again, looking left, market leaf clues. You can go all the way to previous or the most recent one for the V-shaped recovery, right? Unfortunately, those V-shaped were short leaves before this major drawdown prior to the significant bull run of 2022, or late 2022, 2023, and 2024. Okay? So therefore, this is the true test for the new all-time high, right? Why we are retesting these levels? As you guys remember, there were plenty of all-time high callers also at the same levels back in March, February. However, we have the significant downward pressure to 4,800 region. Now we're back testing. Therefore, as an investor, which I'm not personally, I'm a trader. Therefore, if you were invested then, by the way, none of these represent any financial advice, but rather an interpretation of the technical information, is or if an investor was in the longs, following others for a new all-time high, you have potentially experienced a significant decline, nearly 20%, 18% from those same highs where we are currently. Either you left the market, correct? And now we're basically at the same levels we were since February of 2025, right? Also, from October, same levels. So therefore, the overhead resistance now become a key level to break. Can we make a new low than the previous low? This is a $1 million question, or the $1 billion question, I would say, whether or not this pending value formation as a PRC, as a pending bearish spot, I should say, at the 0.886, 6,000. Can we retest 6,000? We will see, my friends. By the way, based on the time analysis, we also have an intersection between price and time tomorrow for May the 14th, based on the golden ratio. Multiplying the previous two lows by the 0.618, we have a move to 22 and 23 days, which concludes tomorrow. So therefore, tomorrow there is a significant price action based on Fibonacci application, applying once again the readings from Euclid. Those of you are familiar already know or already familiar with this strategy. So therefore, I'm looking tomorrow for a potential turning point. We will see which direction, right? Assuming we have been moving upward, therefore maybe a breather of this upward move can take us to a new higher low minimum, right? If this is indeed a true continuation of the prevailing trend, right? Prevailing trend, assuming this is still a primary trend, applying the tenets of the Dow theory. If this is a secondary trend, now resuming the upward trajectory, we will see, my friends. Okay, on the monthly, there are contradicting variables. We have bearish divergences, class A on the monthly. On the weekly, there is an argument for hidden divergences, so therefore contradicting variables. Which one of these two arguments will have greater impact in the markets? We will see. Okay, has the trade or the tariff concluded? We'll see, my friends, right? All I see is noise in the news. However, this move has been indeed a significant downward pressure, now also substantially recover, but from here on, this is a true test of either the decisive penetration, as our friend Harold Garley calls it. We'll see. Once again, you guys note after breaking the 0.618, we have the deepest areas of retracement. Okay, this will be based on the daily time frame, where as of now we don't have any overvalue conditions on the RSI. There might be some room, but let's pay attention to these key levels. Okay, we are already testing the 0.786. That can be an overspill, only an overthrown. Potentially on the weekly, I would say. So let's pay attention how Friday closes on the weekly time interval, okay? So now moving briefly into BTC. Where are we in the price action for Bitcoin? Similar readings. There has been a pending M formation as of now. However, it is hard to know whether or not this is the C leg of that pending M formation. We were looking in this room for this major decline, not major decline. It was indeed a decline. However, also manifested into another upward traction. Okay, we were not expecting this high. However, the 90s, mid 80s was within the region. Now we are at the 103. However, also in the same context, what is Bitcoin printing? A very sharp pattern, also achieving the 0.886 in this case. As we can observe here, BTC has achieved already the PRC of a very sharp, in this case, at the 0.886. So therefore, the idea will be, are we printing a new all-time high, as apparently has been the case? However, keep in mind that new all-time high callers were calling for the same all-time high back at the same levels in January of this year, prior to absorbing another decline, now manifesting to another retest of those highs, okay? So therefore, the argument I had before was the information connecting the major swing lows to swing highs. This one was expected. We were looking in this room, 70s, right? Mid 70s. An upward trajectory, how high? That was indeed a hard task to know whether the C leg is in or was in already at 80s, 90s. However, we do know that C leg on this idea can navigate all the way to the 0.886 that has been as of now tested. So no further upward move or no violation of the previous high should not occur at these levels if this is indeed another pending M formation, okay? If we violate these highs, we then have the argument for a cipher that goes to 113, 122, and 1.41, okay? Or shark if that's the case. But let's violate these levels first, mainly the 0.886, and of course, maybe an argument for a double top or triple top in this case, a major one. We'll see if that's the case on the S&P, or I'm sorry, on BTC. As you guys can tell, I am rushing a little, only because my battery is running low. However, I wanted to present these arguments in the chart that I'm observing. So therefore, where are we now on gold? Gold has been a major player in this rally. So therefore, let's see where gold is currently testing. Something to point out is that on the macro, gold has been massively running. Okay, we have in mind 3,000 key psychological level. However, we went to 3,500, also a psychological level. But so far, is this market overvalued? In my case, or in my opinion, I would think so. And what are those levels that we're testing? Parabolic rises, okay? We're testing the 2.618 extreme wave of the move. Besides the 1.618, we have a 2x of the 1.618 to where? To the 2.618, okay? 2.618 sits at 3,325 without closing above this ratio, okay? We have the session highs as the wicks, but no higher. We did not close above the 2.618, at least for now, okay? So this is an example of parabolic rises that gold has indeed printing since pretty much the 1700 region. That was indeed a low back then on November 2023. However, this was the last leg of the move, potentially, okay? Another harmonic structure to mention here is that 2.618, the fib extension, is also the last leg of the move for a reciprocal ratio of the 50% from the legs X or A to B equals CD Here we have a C leg at the 50%. Ideally, this is a 200% move, okay? That ranges to the 224 or the 2.14, but no higher than the 2.618, okay? So is gold due to another retrace? We will see. We're gonna be looking at minor time frame starting from now on, looking at the S&P, where I can ideally trade live if there is an opportunity to present. An actionable execution, in my opinion, will be, or I will be sharing my own trades if that's the case. I'm sorry, running very late here. All right, everyone, thank you for watching this stream. I know I've been absent. However, I would like to take the wheels back and roll with these streams. I'll see you guys on the next one. And remember to live a life with an attitude of gratitude. Cheers, my friends. Good night.